Hello and welcome. Welcome everyone for our seminar. Thankfully, our room appears to be working tonight. Welcome, how are you? Welcome everyone for our Unit 2 seminar. Right, Eddie, clearly a victory tonight. But we're going to work that out later. I think just being able to, um, hear me and present tonight is about as great as we could hope for. Oh my goodness, Richard, please, if you need to shelter, feel free to go to another location, come back to us if needed. Stay safe. Can everyone hear me okay? Welcome everyone who is just joining for our Unit 2 seminar. I'm glad that you can hear me, and like I said, um, this is the thing that we could have hoped for tonight, given our experience last week. Like I said, I will say my videos in future weeks once things have kind of stabilized with our seminar software. My apologies for last week again, not being able to meet. I'm going to share with you a lot of information tonight about navigating our course as well as our Unit 2 material related to number systems. So we're going to get started right away here. If you have questions at any time, please feel free to post those into the chat. All right. So during Unit 2, your to-do list is to attend seminar like you are now and participate. That is worth 10 points in any given week. It was a freebie last week due to the technical issues. But otherwise know that you are not expected to post a certain amount or a certain number of posts or words. I'm just looking for your honest participation, whether that be you just say one little hello in the beginning and then you're diligently listening and taking notes throughout the hour, or if you like to be active in the chat throughout the hour, asking questions and answering those that I might ask, feel free to approach the seminar however you like. I'm not strict about your participation in seminar. I want to encourage you to attend our live seminars that we're going to have throughout the rest of the course. Fingers crossed, no more issues. Oh goodness, Tim. I hope all is well where you are. And like I said, if there's ever any concern over your safety or some emergency, please feel free to step away from seminar and email me later if needed or if you have any questions. That's a great question, Bo. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Units 1 and 2 in the prior course, great, um, were just in that order. And we rewrote the course so it's fresh, and we just decided to interchange those two units. There's not really any reason for it. The topic areas are distinct. We just found that it would work better scheduling wise to switch those two units around as far as the content that was presented in them. Okay, great question. Good, Patrick. I'm so glad to hear that because that's one of the new things in this course. We chose to go with skybooks because it gives you an interactive reading experience that as you are doing that serves as your homework, which is really a cool thing, right? Who would have thought that by reading the book and doing exercises as you read, that you would be completing your homework at that same time? I think it's a really great platform that we've been able to integrate into our course with this new rewrite, and I'm really excited about it. I was one of the ones that, or I should be less humble in this case. I was the one who rewrote the course for us starting this term. We're launching it. So I'm glad to hear some of those things that you are enjoying guidebooks. That's great to hear. That's that second point in this list, that you review your chapter 2 reading, and as you are doing so, you're completing what's called the lab homework by completing all of the things that are shown as participation activity or challenge activity. Now, when you get to the end of those sections where it says additional exercises, that is just for your practice. So those questions at the very bottom of the section are for, say, quiz preparation for this week, in all of our even numbered units. If you want to look at some additional exercises for practice, that's what those are at the bottom of each section. If you were not sure about how to work guidebooks in that first week, continue working. It's still open for Unit 1. So get it done in the next couple of days, get it out of the way, and moving on to your Unit 2 content. Ernest, that's a great question. There are 20 questions per quiz. Great question. And you'll have up to 3 attempts. The highest grade from your 3 attempts is what will transfer over to our grade book. So if you're happy with your first attempt, you can stop there, or you can use additional attempts up to 3 for quizzes. Each even numbered unit will have those quizzes. And that's that 4th point on this list. The other we have not mentioned yet is the discussion. And you had a discussion in Unit 1. Just make sure you're adhering to those instructions for each of the 3 posts. 3 posts minimum, 1 being your initial original post, and then 2 of them of next week. Matthew, the quiz questions are going to be a little bit different than what you see in guidebooks. Sorry about that. Sounds like there was a little hiccup in the audio there. All right. So there was a question about whether the items in the quizzes would be similar to those in the guidebooks homework. They will be slightly different, is what I would advise. However, the content is the same. So if you have worked genuinely and consistently and diligently through those activities, you know, processing them, internalizing the concept, and understanding, then you will have no problem transferring your knowledge to the formatting that is on the quiz. It's slightly different because it's housed within our course called Brightspace. And so how you see those questions in the quiz will look a little bit different than those activities that you're working through in the guidebook. So just be ready for that. But like I said, if you're doing doing yourself justice in reading through the guidebooks and doing the activities, then that transfer of knowledge will be easy. When you get into that quiz, just read the instructions for each exercise carefully and format your answer in the bright space as it is indicated in the instructions. Sometimes there'll be some all right, so let's next turn our attention to this question. What is discrete mathematics? Let's take a moment to reflect or things that you have read because you're curious in starting this course. What do you think discrete mathematics entails? Right, Lisa, and that's a great point that often it takes just a couple of weeks to get used to the structure of a new course, and I'm with you there. Also available by email all the time if you have questions about where to find something or about anything at all. Applied logic, we're definitely studying logic from Unit 1. It can involve operators like binary operators, Patrick, yes. Those could also be formatted as 1 and 0 functions, right? If you coded the yes as 1, no as 0. Logical applications, problem solving, thinking logically, used in computing, yes. And so all great comments. Thank you for sharing your ideas there. And here's just a little comedic break before we look at some, technical sort of view of what discrete mathematics is. So thank you for sharing your thoughts there. Tim, your thinking is correct. I would say, um, especially in line with statistics. When you think about values which are counted, and if they're not measured like with a scale or a ruler, if they're counted, then they are separated by some distinct increment. That's the kind of discrete measure or discrete variable definition that you're thinking of, Tim. And a lot of what we do in discrete mathematics can be thought of in that way as discrete mathematical topic areas, which are primarily applicable or can be applied to computing or IT generally. Just wanted to clarify your thinking there, Tim, because I recognize a little bit of the definition of discrete variables in your question there, which is, it is somewhat related to the idea of discrete mathematics as a body of math knowledge. It's kind of, you can think of it sort of like that distinct elements of mathematics that we can apply to computing and applications in information technology. So here is a formalized way of thinking about discrete mathematics. I'm not going to read what's on this slide to you, but I want you to just have this moment to reflect on why you might be taking this course, because you are more than likely in an IT program and you have your own area of interest, whether that be cybersecurity or data analytics, any data analytic people in our class tonight, feel free to shout out. What else? Network administration and cloud computing. If I'm missing any, feel free to jump in there with your area of interest or your specialty. Software development. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. I try to keep them all up there on the tip of my tongue and my mind. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, software development, cybersecurity. So all of these areas that we might specialize in have a home, I would say, in discrete mathematics somewhere. What I encourage you to do throughout this course is to just buy in to the idea during this 10 weeks or 9 weeks now that we have together that even if you don't see the direct relationship between your area of specialty in IT and what we study in a given unit, you can benefit from the activity of developing your analytic skills by studying math. And you never know when other context that you find yourself in will be made easier or better by that ability that you have developed. For example, we studied logic last week. Great stuff. It can be a lot of fun for some folks, maybe not for others, but just by that activity of studying that and being able to comprehend and use it, the skill itself may be transferable to other contexts, even if you're not using logic necessarily. And so that's how I encourage you to think about the course overall. Not every topic area will be as fascinating to every one of us, but hopefully you'll find some in there that you like. And then when you find some that you don't like, just remember that we're building our analytical capacity by studying these objects throughout this course. All right, so here's a motivator for our study tonight. Everything that we view on a computer has color to distinguish it on the screen, right? So we codify those colors using what is known as the hexadecimal number system. And if you dive into a particular program like here it's showing in PowerPoint, getting into the color grid, custom colors, and looking at the hexadecimal code of it, you might, if you have Microsoft Paint, that archaic program on PCs, I think you can find something similar in that program as well if you're curious and want to see it by digging into some of the options on one of those programs like that. But that's pretty cool, right? That everything that is developed for visual purpose on a computer has a grounding in numeration, or what we call number systems, and particularly hexadecimal number systems for color on a tablet, computer, you name it. All right, so I'm going to leave you with that little cliffhanger, and we're going to take a dive into our course next, because I want to show you some things to help you navigate through these next 9 weeks before we jump into how to do some of those things with the number systems. I'm going to share my screen with you here, and we're going to hop over into the course. And here we are on our course homepage. We have a lot of content on here. Tiles on the left, announcements on the right, seminar schedule on the right. So just want to orient you a little bit there and also point your attention to the announcements. Notice that they are cut off. So if you want to see all of the information that I share in a unit announcement, click on its title. That way you can scroll through and see the rest of the content. So you can see there the to-do list for this unit. And also every unit corresponds, fortunately, with the chapter number of our digital book, Zybook. So that makes it easy. You don't have to worry about finding what numbered chapter for what unit. They do align the unit numbers and the chapter numbers, so you can remember that. And then every week I'll share a to-do list and maybe even a video from our live binder. Now let me show you where that is in our course. If you go to content and then click on any unit number from the content menu, for example, unit 1, scroll down, see that has a live binder for unit 1 content. Unit 2 has a live binder for unit 2 content. Let's take a look at what's there for unit 2. You'll see once this loads some tabs along the top with titles, and you can use
You are currently the only person in this conference.
All right, so we are back, and the screen share there appeared to freeze for a moment, and I'm going to try to get everything I wanted to share with you into a brief screen share here. Oh, it's not letting me now. So we're going to continue on to our examples for Unit 2, and if we can get back to our screen share, I will show you some other things throughout our course. But basically what I was showing was under the content menu and unit number, live binder material is an additional place where you can find information about a unit over and above what's in your Zybook. Now, that may not always be necessary, but it's there for you if you need. And then if you can't find stuff in the live binder that you need for that unit, you might venture out to YouTube or link up with one of our Math Center tutors. They're available free of charge during their hours. And then, of course, you have email. You can reach out to me anytime for additional information. So just wanted to share some of those resources that you can find within our course in that little field trip that froze on us. All right, so can we see the slide? I hear some of you saying that the screen is frozen. Can you see the modular arithmetic slide? It's still locked. Okay, let me see if I can get out of that. Hold on just a moment. So it appears that by my sharing the screen, again, it unlocked the previously frozen screen share. Wow, we are doing well. How about it? So since we are back into our screen share, let me go ahead and show you some other things. Yeah, I keep my windows staggered like that, Lisa, so I can see if anyone has questions as we're moving through. All right, so the other thing I wanted to show you for uh, tonight during our field trip into the course was you can access the virtual office and download PowerPoints for each unit from there. You can also use that as another place to ask me questions if you would like. That said, if you have something you want to communicate more privately, just reach out to me by email anytime. If you mean Amazon Web Services, Richard, I know that we had some problems on the 7th, right before the term started, and apparently they were resolved, but you get the picture. We're really, wrestling with the web here with holding these seminars this week. Doing my best here for you all, and just remember that even if we have glitches like this when we're meeting live, you have a whole web of asynchronous resources available. Reach out to me by email anytime. Reach out to tutors at the Math Center anytime. You name it, there's stuff at our fingertips to get the information you need for this course. A lot of it's just going to be from working within zyBooks. It's a great package and can answer a lot of your questions, but feel free to reach out to some of those other resources as needed, like me, by email and the math tutors. All right, so I want to get into our discussion instructions for this week because you're going to be decrypting and encrypting a message using modular arithmetic, and the table of the relation is given here in the discussion. I also share it in one of my top posts to the discussion. So watch out for these in each discussion. I might share some things at the top that could be helpful. You see that relation there. It's also up here in the instructions, the relation of letter to number. And then your particular encrypted data is given in this second post that I made. So you've got your name, find it, and look over to the right of your name to find your specific encrypted message that you will be presenting in your initial post. So here are the instructions for that initial post. You're going to find your code and convert that numerical data to text, and then you can move on after you've completed your initial post to those other two posts replying to your classmates. You won't have to access a table anywhere else for those replies. The table specifically for post 1, your initial post. So I think some of you will find that fun. I know I enjoyed this discussion, and we tested it out in a prior pilot of this particular version of the course. So it's a lot of fun. Now let me come back to our content menu and zyBooks. If you access zyBooks from the content menu, then it will pull up all of your unit homeworks like you see here. And there's another way to access your zyBook lab homework from the course homepage by clicking on the zyBooks tile that's on the top. And that will basically take you to the page that we were just looking at. So once you see that zyBooks tile, click there, and then click on the unit for the homework you want to work on. Any questions about what to do when you're in the zyBooks platform? I'll go ahead and start opening that page just in case. While we're waiting, I'm going to come back to the course homepage show you one more little thing that will be critical for this unit, and that is scroll down. You can click on quizzes up here to get to this, but I'm going to show you in the schedule because I like how this lays it out. Notice it tells you you need to have it done by the 21st, 11:59 p.m. Eastern, Unit 2 quiz. And you can click on that to actually get to the quiz for Unit 2. So that's kind of cool to see that in the calendar, and I can start it here by clicking Unit 2 quiz. Tim, try it out and let me know. I think that you can access the entire Zybooks and all of its corresponding activities from the get-go or day one. From the development stages, I think I remember that's what Zybooks team told us. However, your grade may not sync until that particular unit starts. I think that's how it will work. We're in the initial term of using Zybooks. So if I recall correctly, that is how it's going to work. And we can test it out right now, actually. Here we are in the Unit 1 Zybook, but since we have this question of working ahead, let's come back and test that theory about working ahead if you would like. It's not required, of course.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
Alrighty, we're back, and we are seeing a very odd screen, I know. Let's recap what we were just talking about. So, to my best knowledge, I am fairly certain that you can work ahead in Zybooks by clicking on that particular unit lab homework from the list. Or I believe if you have been working in, say, Unit 2 material and you're just ready to advance to the next section, then it would take you into Chapter 3 when you're at the end of Chapter 2. So if we can get our screen share back, there we go. We can look into Unit 3 lab. And basically, the homework consists of reading through the chapter material and completing the challenge and participation activities in each section of the chapter. So for Unit 1, for example, that would be all sections of Chapter 1. And for Unit 2, all sections of Chapter 2, and so forth. So here I am in section 3.1. I'm reading, and I get to a participation activity. I need to do that until I see a check box over here on the upper right-hand corner. So notice this is an interactive learning video. I'm not necessarily entering answers, I'm just watching and understanding the content. Okay. I see how that counting technique is being applied now, and I've finished that participation activity. So I can move on with the reading. Now I have an active participation activity where I need to input some answers. So filling beans and salsa, how many possible combinations are there? Well, that would be 18. I can check that. And then I want to work through each of these items until I do all three of those, and then I'll see the checkbox for that particular overall participation activity. Work all of those items until I see the big checkbox over here on the upper right. So those are how participation activities will work. And then challenge activities are a little bit different. In order to get this big checkbox to say I'm done with this challenge activity, I have to do these 5 levels of activities. So if I'm creating a password with digits and letters, how many valid passwords are there possible? I need to click start, and then I need to calculate, what that is. If it's not correct, it'll show me, a expected answer or solution, and then I can try a new one until I get that level correct and can move on to the next level. I just need to work through 5 questions similar to that, testing that concept, and then I'll see that check mark over here on the upper right-hand corner of that challenge activity. And then I would be finished with this section. These additional exercises, like I said earlier, are for your own practice. They may help you in preparing for the unit quiz. You're not required to do all of those. There's no submitting of those. Once I'm ready to move on to the next section, notice I need to scroll past all of those to click on the next section of Chapter 3. Continue reading and working through the rest of a chapter, and that is how you earn full credit on the lab homework. All participation activities throughout the reading and all challenge activities. Now notice, not all sections are going to have both. This particular section only has participation activities, notice. And then I'm ready, once I get those participations done, to move on to 3.3 and so forth. They are not, Dave. If you have questions about any of them in particular, then feel free to take a screenshot of it and send me an email. There is some feedback that is provided on the participation activities and the challenge activities within the units, but for those additional exercises at the bottom, those don't have a solution key shown, but you can feel free to take a screenshot of the question you're wondering about and email me. I'll be happy to provide some direction or solution. If whatever if you have worked out your solution, just send me that and I can verify for you if you would like that it is correct. If, you know, if it's not, I'll provide you with some ideas or direction and may ask you for some explanation as to how you approached it in that dialogue by email. All right, so that's a view of iBooks. Want to make sure everyone is understanding of how it works because it's a different style of homework than I would say probably all of us are used to. This is really cutting edge stuff. I'm so glad that I found it for our new version of this class. Okay. So here we are back on the slides. Can everyone see modular arithmetic and our first example here? Great. We're doing pretty well now, it looks like. Hopefully we can sustain this pace for the rest of the hour. So one of the topics this week is modular arithmetic. And the way that we handle modular arithmetic is by thinking through a division problem. You know, if you think back to all the nitty-gritty details of, yeah, hopefully I haven't, Nathan. If you think to those details of division, what do you have? You have, you know, how many times you can divide or how many times you can cut into that number and what your remainder is after doing so. And all of that information is used in modular arithmetic. So if we wanted to compute 15 mod 6, for example, we would think about, well, what is 15 divide 6? Well, the range for anything mod 6 is starting from 0 up to 5. And anything mod anything is basically established on the range from 0 up to that number. So mod 3, for example, would consist of range 0, 1, 2. Mod 6 consists of 0 through 5. Now, what do we do with that particular solution space? How do we decide which one of those numbers is 15 mod 6? Well, think about starting from 15 and bouncing back as many times as you could go. That's kind of like how many times can we divide 6 into 15, right? Twice. We can do that twice, and then however many steps are remaining.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
All right. Looks like I am back on the audio. Had to exit and come back there. Again, thanks for, your patience as we navigate these first couple of weeks. This is not the norm. Um, yeah, I wish that, we could have some sort of omnipotent, omniscient, I'm not sure the term for, universal bandwidth and trumping of any kind of issues, AWS or anything that is currently inhibiting us from a smooth meeting. But um, we will get there. I promise you, this is just a kind of um, just an instant this term, this first week or so. Um, this is not the norm. And from what I hear, it's probably going to be better starting next week. So hang in there. Thank you for your patience. And I'm holding down all of my frustration, believe me, because I want to give you much better experience than what we've been able to, have together so far. This is pretty ridiculous. Anyway, back to our example on computing modular, um, computing by modular arithmetic. If we are computing 15 mod 6, for example, then we want to think about, okay, how many times does 6 divide into 15? That's twice. And then what is the remainder that is left over? That is 3. And that is what we call 15 mod 6, is that remainder when dividing 6 and 15. So it's really not any more complicated than what we already know about division. We can come up with how many times a number goes into another, and we just have to remember that whole remainder idea and now situate that in the idea of modular arithmetic. All right. So in the time we have left, let's also visit a few examples related to number systems. Our primary system that we're accustomed to and use on a daily basis is known as the Hindu-Arabic numeration system, or base 10, more simply. And we use all of the digits leading up to 10, so 0 through 9, so very similar to the structure of your solution space for a modular arithmetic problem, right? If we're operating in base 10, it's almost like we're doing mod 10 stuff with assigning each digit, and then the places as they occur in the number we express tell us, well, how many powers of the base, or 10 in this case, is associated with that particular digit. And just a brief recap on exponents, if we say 3 to the 4th power, for example, we're multiplying 3 by 3 4 times over. So what if we wanted to express a Hindu-Arabic numeral in what we call expanded form, like 663? How would we do so? We want to think about those digits as in particular indexed places. So reading from the right, think of this as the zeroth index, this is the first, and this is the second.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
Alrighty, y'all. We are almost there. I'm telling you, it's gonna happen. We're gonna have a Unit 2 seminar. Some glitches and all. All right. So, returning to this example, and this applies to any base, not just 10, because we're not going to have an opportunity to look at a lot of different bases tonight. But if you start to read that number from its units place, what we would call the ones place, think of that as your 0th indexed place. Then that tells you what power to apply to the base of that number. For example, if it were a base 2 number we were working with, we would apply that power to 2. Here we're placing that power on 10. So the 0th index place goes to the 3, the first index place to that middle 6, so 10 to the first power goes with that, and then the second index place is that leftmost 6, the second power goes on the 10 associated with that 6. Now let's try it out with another one before we end tonight. Fingers crossed we get there and on to the finish line. So if we wanted to write this numeral in expanded form, what would we do? We would think of these as 0th index, first index, second index, and third index to tell us our powers to associate 10 with each of these digits. So with the 5, we're going to have a 10 to the third power. With the 1, we're going to have a 10 to the second power. With the 0, we're going to have a 10 to the first power. And with the 2, we're going to have a 10 to the 0th power. Now that anything to the 0th power reduces to 1, which is why you just see a 1 there. But to relate it to our thinking about how to associate the base with its power that's necessary for each place throughout the number and the indices, just remember that units place or the ones place or the what we're calling 0th index place is basically reducing to 1 when you raise 10 to the 0th, or any base like 2 to the 0th or 8 to the 0th. If you're working in base 2 or base 8 or base 16, for example, that first index place is the 0th power on your base. Right, Lisa. Yep, that's right. And it looks like we might have the opportunity to look a little bit further. Yes. So let's take a look at this expanded form and write it in its numeral or number. So take a moment to work out the multiplication involved there, see what number you come up with. Be careful that not all of the um, places are explicitly stated in this example. One of them has been omitted from the expanded form. 3026, right? So notice that first one was to the third power of 10, 3,000 essentially. The next power of 10 was omitted, so we have a 0 in that place. And then we have 10 to the first power, 2, and the units place gets a 6. Now, before we end tonight, let me just sort of fast forward to another example. We're going to skip over that Babylonian example. It's fascinating, but I really want you to see how this is executed in a base other than 10. So what if we wanted to change this number base 8 to base 10? We would think through the number just as we did before. This is the 0th index, first index, second index, and third index. So what we do is we say 4 times 8 to the third power, 7 times 8 to the second power, 2 times 8 to the first power, and 6 times 8 to the 0th power. I know some funky little symbols got placed on that slide, but you should be able to see what I'm talking through there enough, by ignoring those symbols. And notice the relationship between how we've been talking about indexing each place and how that relates to the power. And now we're just using a different base system, not 10, but 8. And so when we write out the expanded form, we use a base 8 with each of those indices, multiply that by the digit, and then once you get to working through the mathematics, what are we looking at? What base is this in? Answer that question and we are done. 10, yes. We're converting to base 10 when we carry out that act of expressing the base of the number we are working with in expanded form. That is effectively converting from that base to base 10 when we express it that way in the expanded form and then work it out. It's weird because if we do that with base 10, it is base 10, right? So that kind of, an abstraction when we look at it in base 10. When we look at it in other bases, that is effectively what we get when we write out the expanded form and work out the mathematics involved. What we are doing whenever we carry out that activity is converting to base 10. All right. Oh my goodness. Thank you for your patience. And like I said, next week is going to be just smooth as butter. I promise you. I hope I can fulfill that promise for you. They are, Gary. They are in the virtual office. If you go to the content menu of our course and then look through those threads in the virtual office, I have the seminar PowerPoint ready for you to download there. Right, Lisa. I'm absolutely going after them. Thanks, everyone. It's been great meeting you live as well as we could tonight. And I look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday night. It's going to be a blast. A smooth blast. We have fun. And like I said, if you have any questions that arise this week, feel free to email me at any time. Gary, I'm not familiar with Twitch. I might have to look